Let's go talk to Dr. Mark. Dr. Mark's on line 24, I do believe. Hi, Mark. Good morning, buddy.
Hi, good morning.
Well, hey, you need to wake up. Let me tell you a little about Dr. Mark. Not only did Alex go to elementary school with Dr. Mark, did you guys know that?
Wow.
No.
I did not.
We have been friends for about 12 years. He used to work with Alex at Staten Island Zoo, and now he is, well, we call him the virus hunter, but he does much more than that. So, Dr. Mark, thank you for calling into the show. It's so good to talk to you, and it's good for us to connect again. Hey, before you came on, we were talking about how we feel you are so enthusiastic about what you do for a living. Tell everyone what it is you do.
Sure. So right now, for the last 5 years or so, I've been working for the Smithsonian's Global Health Program. And one of the main projects that we have been working on is a USAID project called Predict, where we go out into the field into countries that are high risk for wildlife diseases to jump over into the human population, like COVID-19. Right. So we have to go into places like caves, the field, farms, and areas where we're most likely to find the source of these zoonotic viruses, and then identify them, identify the behaviors that people practice that could lead to jumping into humans, and then stopping it right there.
All right, so stop there. How stupid do we all feel right now?
Very stupid. Crazy.
I don't know. You know, when you were out there studying how wildlife, what disease goes from wildlife to human beings, while you were studying that as a child, I was picking my boogers. I mean, that's as good as I got. I mean, that's as brilliant as I got. So you have lived in some crazy places, and you've studied wildlife in Myanmar, and you said Burma as well. I mean, you've been everywhere in these places that a lot of us will never, ever see, right?
Sure. Yes, I've been traveling around all over Asia, in about 10 different countries where most of the work I do. But Burma specifically is where I have done the most work regarding wildlife disease surveillance.
Okay, so tell everyone listening what a day at the office was like for you when you. By the way, Mark is in New York City now. Did you feel safer in Burma or in New York City?
I believe it or not, I feel safer in New York City.
Okay, good. So tell everyone what a typical day at the office was for you. This is great. Listen to this.
So actually, day to day was quite different depending on what kind of animal I need to look at. But for the most part, most of the viruses that we are worried about do actually come from bats, rodents, or primates. These are the animals that typically carry these zoonotic viruses that we're worried about. And so we have to put together a large team of local citizens and then go out into the field. And usually, obviously, bats are located in trees, in communities, as well as caves. And so one of the caves that we work in has about 500,000 bats living inside of it. This is about 4 different species. And also in this cave are rodents just in and out, and then primates that are running all around. And the goal here is to identify if they're sharing. All 3 species could potentially be sharing the same diseases, which just proves that the virus can be going from animal to animal and animal potentially to humans. And we would go out there at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning and start capturing hundreds of bats, and then just start sampling them, taking oral swabs, rectal swabs, blood samples, and then give them a little bit of juice and release them back out. No animals die.
By the way, my favorite band growing up was Rectal Swab. I don't know if you guys ever saw them. So
talented.
I must assume, Mark, when you travel to these countries, they look at you like, oh, what does this stupid American want? What do we have to do? So you have to acclimate to their life and get them to their lives, and you have to get them to trust you so you can be a part of their community and then do these studies, right? That must have been quite a challenge for you.
You're absolutely right. And it's a matter of building trust within these communities because you're pretty scary looking, on top of just being a foreigner. You have to wear all of this body gear just to prevent yourself from contracting any illnesses. And so I have one circumstance where we worked in this one cave where a monk lived outside of the cave and protected the animals inside the cave. And we had to sit there and work with him for maybe about a month to 2 months to try to build a trusting relationship with him. to show him we're not a threat. We're not a threat to his cave, his way of life, the culture that has developed over thousands of years. And then, but the kicker for us was he had venomous snakes all around his cave, and he's been really worried about what they can do to him or the tourists, the religious tourists that come there. So what we finally wound up doing is going on Amazon and buying a snake hook, and we brought that back
snake
to him,
hook.
and snake
Wow.
hook just to protect himself. Yeah.
That's all he needed
And he
was a
let us
snake
in.
hook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so I know everyone on the show has questions for you, but tell us, first of all, why are you so interested in this for your life? I mean, you have decided to dedicate your life to this. What is it about this that is so fascinating for you that makes you get up and do it every day?
Sure. You know, my whole life has actually been dedicated to wildlife, animals, trying to bring conservation measures to ensure that they have a continued livelihood. But jumping into this field, One Health field, which is the intersection between humans, wild animals, and the environment, to ensure that we're looking at every aspect of health so that way all of us can live. So that wildlife and humans can live side by side. And so as a wildlife veterinarian, I think it's pretty amazing that the impact that I have is not just on conservation of animals, but on the livelihoods of people too.
Wow. Okay, so here we are in New York City and around the country and around the world listening to our show. People are worried about COVID-19, the coronavirus. Is this a virus that you guys saw and you knew it was on its way, like a freight train? If not, are there other viruses you've discovered that we need to be thinking about? And like, where do we sit today with everything that you have learned around the world?
Sure, that's an excellent question. So the scientists that I work with, virologists, public health officials, physicians, veterinarians, government officials, we knew this was coming. Not specifically COVID-19, but we knew viruses of this danger level were coming. We've known this for a long time, even since SARS came around. And so that's why we do what we do, is to look for these viruses to stop it from getting into human populations. In fact, the work that we did in Myanmar, we've already discovered 6 new coronaviruses. Not this coronavirus that COVID-19 is from, but we've already found new viruses that have never been discovered before in bats. And all throughout the world, in 30-plus different countries, through this program, we've discovered over 800 viruses that have never been discovered before, including a new Ebola virus. And knowing this information, we're able to say, hey, this is where these viruses are coming from. This is the species of animal that it's coming from. And these are the human behaviors that will lead you to getting this virus. We go back to the communities and we say, hey, don't eat bats. Don't farm their guano. Don't play with these animals over here. And then we bring it to the government level and say, hey, these are the policies that we recommend, so that way you can prevent the next pandemic from happening.
So do you think what we're going through right now is our wake-up call? And as awful and tragic as it is, and it will be for some time to come, this is what we needed to go through in order to protect ourselves for the future?
You know, it's quite unfortunate. I don't want to say it's a wake-up call because, you know, we've had many wake-up calls, and I don't want us to have to fall into the same complacency that we have every single time of something like this happens. But sure, if we want to take the benefit of COVID-19, absolutely, we need to invest. We need everyone on board. We need the young generation to consider going into a career of this nature.
Wow. All right. Everyone's just ready to talk to you, Doctor. By the way, Dr. Marc Valitutto, very dear friend of Alex and mine. And just, it's so fascinating to hear a friend of ours who's so knowledgeable. It kind of makes me wonder where we went wrong. But anyway, Gandhi, go ahead. Dr. Marc, it's all yours.
Hello, Dr. Marc. First of all, I love you. I think what you're doing is awesome. But when you discover a virus, it's already obviously been around. So do you think that there's any chance that this coronavirus, COVID-19, has been in the USA before we realized it was here?
You know something? I only know as much as you do regarding whether or not it's been here, but chances that this virus has existed for a long time is a good chance. The mutations that happened to the virus is more recent, but whether or not it's been to the U.S. for a long time, that specifically I don't know.
Wow, because a lot of us in our circle feel like we've had something, or they've had some symptoms for a while now, and we didn't know what it was. Yeah, Froggy, go ahead.
So last June, I got really, really, really ill. And I do have some pre-existing conditions that cause me to make it difficult to get over things. However, I was tested for mono, strep, the flu, pneumonia, everything, and everything came back negative, and they never could really figure out what I had. But I was sick for 2 or 3 weeks. And so now, speaking back to doctors, they're saying that maybe this had been in the U.S., and it was a form of the coronavirus that I had up to a year ago. And it's crazy to think something like that is possible.
Is it possible?
There are thousands of coronaviruses out there. And there are coronaviruses that come from livestock, that come from other wildlife that just live in the United States. And then there's coronaviruses that just are part of the human population. And so there's even other viruses out there that are not coronaviruses that we just don't have tests for. And so, yeah, there's a potential that maybe what you had was some virus we don't know. But there are speculations that there's also potential that it could have been this coronavirus. But for going back in June, no idea. I think it's going to be a lot of investigation following up with this to determine how long this potentially was in the human population.
So, Dr. Mark, you talk about a lot of viruses. We must have viruses that float by that we'll never, ever know about because they come and go, and it doesn't matter. I bet Scary hasn't washed his jeans in 6 days. I bet he's got all sorts of viruses in there. You know what I'm saying? And there's a good chance none of us will ever be affected by any of them, but it's just every once in a while one gets through the goalie, and then boom. Danielle, what do you have for Dr. Mark?
So you're finding all of these, different viruses, and you bring them to the forefront and say, hey, be careful with this, don't do this. How come they're not being proactive and saying maybe we should come up with a vaccine for this ahead of time?
Yeah, so a vaccine is great. However, creating a vaccine for viruses that mutate constantly or viruses that we just don't know about and we're trying to discover, it's quite a difficult thing. Vaccine trials take over a year and a half and millions of dollars to ensure that they're effective and safe to the human population. So one vaccine is a lot of investment. And, as I said, we found over 800 new viruses, and we don't even know which ones are capable of causing a problem. So identifying and then creating a vaccine is a huge hurdle.
Wow. Alex, when you're going to elementary school with Dr. Mark, did you know he was going to be this brilliant?
No.
Wow. Gandhi brings up a good point. When you go into these villages and these visiting all around the world, how do these different cultures respond to a bunch of strangers just showing up saying, stop eating rats? Like, who are you? Like, if you came to my house today and said, stop eating that Eggos you're going to die. I mean, who are you to tell me that? I mean, it must take a lot of work to get them to trust you.
You're 100% correct. And that is a huge part of the project because we can't just go in there waving a flag saying what you do is bad because this is their culture. Number one, this is something that they've developed over many, many generations. But on top of that, they're poor countries. These are countries of people that don't have the resources other than what is presented to them. And this is all they know, what's okay. And so when we go in there, we have to go in gently. We have to go in with a team of their peers, of their own citizens, to be able to make these statements. So it's not like I go in personally as a foreigner and say, this is what you have to do. We work with our local citizens of each country to be able to make these statements. And we translate everything into their own language. But then we speak to them at a level that we know that they can grasp and understand. But then the work that we do doesn't stop with us. It has to be paired with alternative resources, alternative ways of living. How are they going to be able to make money off of something that is totally new to them? And this is very similar to like in the United States, which is like the coal industry, moving people away from an industry that we want to develop from and asking them to start a whole new career, a way of life to make money.
Wow. Do you know much about viruses or more about transmission from animals to people? I mean, what's your specialty? Can you tell us anything about this virus? I mean, once you have it, can you get it again? I mean, does it mutate to become a new virus and then you can get it again? I mean, what do you know about it?
Yeah, that's information for the virologist because this is something that brand new, and we are still actively learning. There are papers currently being published. As of just yesterday, brand new papers being put out there to tell us more information. We just don't know. The physicians that are working on it just don't know enough about whether or not the people who had it are going to get it again, because it's only been a few months. So, we have a lot to go. But yeah.
So here you are in the safety of New York City. I mean, are you, Mark, are you anxious to hop on a plane and go back and start swabbing more bat rectums? I mean, what is it? Is this something you have to get back to because you're so passionate about it? Or are you ready to do something a little different with your career?
There's so much work that needs to be done. It doesn't stop. The work has to keep going. And this is a forever thing. This is something that why we need the next generation to invest and get their butts out there to start doing rectal swabs. So, I personally, this is something that I am very passionate about because it has an impact on the wildlife specifically, and then of course the humans that are involved. And the statement that I really have taken to heart is, I can't save wildlife unless I'm saving humans too. It's just, it goes hand in hand. And so I have to get back out.
Wow. And by the way, Mark is recovering from what he thinks was coronavirus, right? You actually, you feel like you have it, correct?
Sure. Yeah. A few weeks ago, I wound up coming down with all of the symptoms that they consider mild, although me personally, it did not feel mild at all, at least for the first 5 days. But the kicker was that I lost my sense of smell and taste, and that was a shock to me. I'd never had that happen to me before.
Well, look, thank you for spending time with us. I find this so fascinating. We see the news every day about how we're responding and how all the heroes are going in every day to help save lives. But to hear someone who's like sort of at the foundation of where it all starts and it's turned into your life passion, I think that's just so real. And thank you for sharing your time with us, Dr. Mark. And it's great talking to you, and I hope you stay safe.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.